This is Seth Beamer, and you're listening to the Pivot Points Music Cast on Fader. Pivot Points dissects the lives of artists at their most crucial intersections, investigating the trials of this insane career and how they are overcome. These are the stories of the crossroads that, for better or worse, shape us all into the people, friends, and musicians we're meant to be. Today, I'm joined by Zee, the powerhouse lead singer and frontwoman of Wicked Vixen. As a professional vocalist and violinist, Zee has explored a wide range of musical genres. And I'm excited to dive into how she channels that diverse experience into this project. Plus, what's next for the band. But first, let's check out their most streamed song on Spotify. This is For the Damned.
Down where all the people go. Down beyond the horizon where we show.
Zee, what's up?
Hey,
How's it going?
it's going good.
Thank you for being on the pod today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to dive in because, you know, when I met you, we've talked about this band and everything that you have with it, but I really know you maybe even more so from the songwriter standpoint and from the, maybe not the country standpoint, but the songwriter standpoint. And talk to me about the roots of this band and how did this band start? And, I really don't even know your story. So let's start there.
Yeah. So this band has been through a lot of iterations, I guess I should say.
Okay.
It started as my solo project, more or less, with a hired band, some hired guns in Nashville, Tennessee, where I grew up.
Oh, so you did start in Nashville with this band?
Yes.
Okay.
A long time ago. And it looked very different back then. So when it started in Nashville, I was about 21 and I decided, I'd done a bunch of other projects for other people, worked in the studio, worked in like movies and television and things like that as a musician. But as much as I had done for other people, I wanted to start my own band. And ever since I got into the world of classic rock and discovered that whole realm, I knew that that's what I wanted to do. So
cool.
I went into that world and I'd already started writing my own music, but I actually started bringing it to people, finding producers, trying to find band members and flesh out an idea of what this band could be. And it started kind of as like a country rock.
Really?
Yeah, at least that's not what I intended it to be, but because of my roots and my upbringing, that's what it kind of turned into. So that's where it originated.
And how old are you at this point when you started the band, by the way?
I was about 20 or 21.
Okay, so probably still fresh on the scene. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's about the time when I started like actually doing the band thing too. Yeah. And it started in Nashville. What happened to the original players? Did you kick them out? What's the beef here?
No, so I ended up moving to Colorado, and the reason being is that at the time, I didn't know what I was doing really with the industry at all, and Nashville's a very competitive market. And so in terms of players and things like that, I think it was just a lot harder for me to find my footing and get any kind of solid, lineup going. Yeah. And because it was my band and I had these hired guns, I was also young and didn't have all the funding to do so. And so I just decided, I'll go try this somewhere else, where I guess maybe the stakes weren't so high for me. Yeah. So a place like Colorado, where there is still a thriving art scene, and I felt like I could relax and ease into the music scene a little bit more, was really helpful for me at the time because I didn't have, I think, the confidence in my playing in the way that I do now.
Sure, yeah.
And so it helped me approach this industry without so much trepidation. Yeah. And the original players, they've all moved on to go do other things. One's a producer, and one I think is still drumming, and so we're just kind of split everywhere. But
nice. Yeah.
So I think because too it was my project and I hired these people on, there wasn't a whole lot of investment from those members,
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
But that's fine. It is what it is. I wanted to own the project. I wanted it to be mine. And I'm happy to say, though, that now it's morphed into more of a band collective project. Yeah.
I totally feel you with the worthiness, the feeling of worthiness, or the feeling of, just the self-consciousness maybe. Like at that age, I never thought I was good enough to, get on a stage. And I mean, I'd been on stages, but not at a big level, and it's funny, the 20s are the formative years where you kind of figure some of that out, I think. And it is nice to, maybe that was a wise choice, I should say. It was a wise choice to go somewhere where you didn't have that kind of pressure. You could just be you and just focus on the band and the music and just really just being yourself. And so what happens after that? You moved to Colorado. How'd you find these guys? Or has it been the same band ever since with the Colorado crew, or what?
Not exactly the same band, but known a lot of these guys for a number of years.
Okay.
So Kyle, the guitarist, I've known him almost the entire time I've been in Colorado. And he actually played in a metal band called Genocide Method way back when. And his... trying to remember the way that we actually got connected, because I met him through another musician who was a drummer who drummed for me at the time.
Okay.
And he came to watch me perform at just a little local cafe in Fort Collins. And then he was like, okay, this is pretty tight. The electric violin thing. I think after that he was convinced. Yeah. Because he's just a rock and roller through and through. So he's been with me through pretty much every iteration of this band since it's been in Colorado.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And then we have Chandler on bass. He was also part of Genocide Method, and he wasn't the original bassist. I actually had a different bassist at the time. Sure. Somebody that I also met through that original drummer in a different project that I was trying out at the time.
Isn't it funny? That's just how I was talking with my girlfriend about this today. Actually, just about how I knew you, because I told her what I was doing tonight and how I was going to do this interview. And so I kind of told her the story about how I knew you, or where our paths met, and she was like, lots of winding going on. And I was like, that's the music industry. Everyone knows someone through someone. So that's no wonder you found your members that way. But sorry, continue.
Yeah, no, I always talk about that, especially in terms of Nashville. The 6 degrees of separation really becomes 1 to 2 or 3 at most. Yeah. You just never know who knows who and who through those other people. And then how many people you realize that from that one touch point through them as well. So yeah, that's a cool part of the music industry is how well connected I think it is. Yeah. But yeah, so Chandler joined the band probably a couple years into us doing it out there in Colorado. The other bassist had just different career plans of what he wanted to do in music, and so he pivoted and did that. Okay. And then we've gone through a couple different drummers, but right now we have AJ Knight, who plays for a number of bands in Fort Collins. He plays for Sugar Britches and Bevan Luna's band. He's also done stuff with Max Mackey and a couple other cats up in that area. So cool. He's all over the place. Wow. But yeah, that's my band as it is today.
Dang, that's so cool. And you get along with these guys to the point now where you feel like this is your, like you said before, it's not so much your ownership as you are a full band now. Mm-hmm. And when did that change for you?
So I think it changed when we started changing our name a bit, because the original name of the band, as it was out in Nashville where it originated, was Zee Ireland, which was, Ireland is my middle name spelled with like an Lynn.
Oh, nice.
And so it actually did start that way. And because I was bringing these songs from Nashville to Colorado, I was bringing these songs to these people, and I'm like, this is my stuff. This is what I do. And then they're like, cool, we like it. We dig it. We'll jump on. Nice. And over time, I think it just gradually turned into that kind of energy in the band, like a collective energy. And it became more of what I envisioned it to be over time, which was a rock band instead of just a solo project. So we dropped the Ireland part because nobody would, or hardly anybody would understand what I was saying, especially in like a crowded bar or something. If I tried to,
like something Ireland.
Yeah. And somebody joked with me one time, and they're like, Ireland just sounds like somebody trying to say Ireland, but while they're drunk. I was like, oh, that's funny. That tracks.
You're like, yeah, thanks. That's my middle name, asshole.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Jeez. So, but just, for memorability and all of that, I decided to drop that. Well, in doing so, we went to just Z. Okay. And that whole thing was a journey as well. and us realizing that after we rebranded to just Z, it was like all capital letters. We were still trying to promote it as a band, like a group, instead of just a solo person, but it didn't really land the way that we wanted it to.
And were you releasing music as all these different names too? Like, did you have releases out there in the world?
Yeah, so Z Ireland, actually there's an EP from when I did it back in Nashville, and it's real cute. Like, I listened back to it and I was like, oh, that was a really good first try, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And we ended up recutting, I think, almost all the songs except for one off that EP when we were just Z.
As Z.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And we put out a full album under that name.
Wow.
And after we did that, I started to realize I do marketing as well. And started to realize that the SEO for Z was terrible. It's absolute shit.
I could see that.
Yeah.
I could see that, yeah.
Yeah, because it's involved in so many other different names. It's at the front end, the back end, in the middle. It's, you know, then there's a lot of standalone artists that are that name as well.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, okay, well, we've been going in this heavier direction. And so let's do something unique. Let's do something that's very rock and roll, that's leaning into the sound that we've now collectively developed. And as much as I hated rebranding twice, because rebranding a band not once but twice is a lot of work, but it's been very beneficial for us in the long run.
And did you have to deal with that with like Spotify or anything, or was Spotify in the picture at this time? Because going back as far as you have with this music, I mean, maybe Spotify wasn't even a thing back then.
It was, and actually my first EP is still out there.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe I'm throwing myself under the bus a little bit because people are going to go find it now. But
no, it's all good.
People can sleuth if they want to nowadays, right? So
let them.
Yeah. Doesn't really matter if I say anything about it now or later. Someone's going to find it. But yeah, it's still out there on Spotify. The first full-length album that we did as Z was it was also put through CD Baby. So everything has been, distributed to as many major streaming platforms as possible. It's just about like how optimized those platforms are. Can you find it easily? That sort of thing. So, but yeah, it's all out there, all this music.
But you didn't like change your name in that group. You just started a new artist profile.
Right. Well, yeah, as far as the music streaming goes, we started a new artist profile because there was a new name, and there's all these types of rules and regulations with ISRC codes and things where you can't like re-upload to a different name. And,
the reason why I bring it up is because I did just see somebody who changed their whole profile and they split it, and they were under one name, decided, I want to start going over under another name, but they had things on that old profile that were like, well, I guess I'll say this. Some of the music was more like covers, and then some of the music was originals, and they didn't want to delete the covers because the covers do really well, but the originals weren't representative of them as the name, and so they split the name, but they took their originals over, left the covers, and I was like, hold on, whoa. I got so confused because I thought the same thing. Like, you can't just do that. You have to make a new artist profile, but then I guess you can do that. Maybe it's easier today than it once was. I don't know.
Yeah. Interesting. I don't know. I didn't, as far as the streaming distribution portion of it, didn't look into that as closely. I know that I did ask about the ISRC codes and reposting this music, but all of the like metadata and the system reading that, it would have flagged it if it was the exact same. So
there's also something to be said about just once you're something new, having a fresh start.
Yeah.
There's something nice about that.
I think it really was a good move for us looking back. There's I think there's like maybe 2 or 3 songs that we still play live off of that first album, because there were 10 songs on that album. Nice. So my first album is the Ireland. There were 4 songs. It was an EP. And then the album that we did as a band once I was out in Colorado, wrote the music, practiced the music, got everything up to standard for the studio. Yeah. Then we put out 10 songs in that album. Okay. And out of that, probably 2 or 3 made the cut. It still feels like Wicked Vixen. Yeah. And oddly enough, one of those songs at least was from the original project. Okay. All the way like 10 years ago, Wow. So yeah, it's been a wild ride, but I am glad that we started over because the sound and the way that we approach our instruments now, or approach the mixing and mastering, the studio process. Like the entire sound is pretty drastically different. I'd say it's a lot heavier nowadays. So I think that clean break was pivotal for us.
How about, I'm curious then of the song, because we're going to listen to it, Good Lord Woman. Was that one of the old songs, or is that a new one?
That's a new one.
Okay,
Yeah.
and was that written by the whole band? Is this part of the band coming together as like this new unit, or talk to me about that song?
So the songwriting process historically has mostly come from myself.
Okay.
And then I bring it to the band, and we collaborate on the arrangement of the song.
Cool.
And so that's the
Pretty
same
typical
thing
band stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's how that one happened as well. Yeah. What's the meaning behind it? Where did it come from? So that one is about a crush that I had on a girl. And,
okay. We're getting into it right now.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. It was about a crush that I had on a girl, and she, I don't know if you've been so wrapped up in somebody that it just kind of wrecks you, and you're just like, oh God, like you could do anything to me and I'd be fine. That's maybe a little dramatic, a little extreme, but,
hey, we've all had those feelings.
Yeah, I have a flair for the dramatic. So, tend to lean into it, but yeah, I ended up developing feelings for her and kind of like was shooting my shot and was, turned down. And so that was kind of my way of dealing with those feelings at the time. So yeah, that's what that one's about. But having these like really overwhelming feelings for somebody and just being like, the whole title of the song is kind of like, oh, good Lord, like, you do something to me,
Like, whew, good Lord.
Good Lord. Yeah,
oh,
exactly.
I love it. Well, that's awesome. Let's go ahead and listen to it. This is Good Lord Woman. I'm interested to hear more about some of your just influences and how did you end up getting this sound, this more heavy sound? Because I know you're also a professional vocalist and you have such a great like kind of songwriter sound sometimes too. And you also play violin professionally and you're playing in other groups and other bands. And you said yourself you had a little bit of a country background, or maybe we'll call it an Americana background, especially growing up in Nashville. Where did this sound come from then? How does this all blend together to become this heavier sound? Yeah,
so I do have roots in a lot of Americana. I'd say less country. I actually, I know this is sacrilegious as a Nashville native, but I hated country music growing up.
Don't you say it. No.
I know. It's terrible. I'm going to have people coming after me now. All my bands are going to be like, what?
No, you're good. We like what we like.
Yeah. But I think I was just so against it because I had grown up in it, in the oversaturated market of hearing country everywhere.
Sure.
And I hadn't really found the country that I liked. And, but I did grow up listening to Alison Krauss, for instance, Union Station.
Yeah.
And so in that way, like the Americana blues scene was more my style at the time.
Yeah.
But when I was, I think about 7th or 8th grade, I went to a summer camp at the Blair School of Music.
Okay.
And they had a bunch of different genres that you could, learn from and study under these instructors, jazz and fiddle and bluegrass and Celtic and classical, and one of them was the electric violin, like rock class. And that's how I found the instrument. Well, not really through that. One of my friends had the instrument.
Okay.
And the guy who is the founder and owner of the company who made those instruments originally was going to be one of the instructors at that camp.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah. And so she had one of these instruments. I was like wildly fascinated by this instrument.
Okay.
And, but a little intimidated by it because it's got 7 strings and frets and it looks like a flying V. Like it looks pretty gnarly.
Oh, really? Oh.
Yeah. And so but I wanted to learn more about it. So I was going to the summer camp, and she's like, yeah, come along and like sit in on the class. And I was like, yeah, I just want to see, what's going on.
And I'm sorry to interrupt, but were you already playing fiddle at this time?
Yes.
You already knew, so that was a part of your arsenal, and now you're coming to this class.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so I started when I was 4 years old in the Suzuki method.
Oh, baller. So did I. I think actually now you're reminding me we might have mentioned that to each other at one point. But
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, continue.
Yeah, those roots run deep for a lot of people I know in music. You say Suzuki, and yeah.
And you say Suzuki, and then you have flashbacks
Yeah.
like of war. You're like,
Right. Yeah.
no.
Yep. So yeah, I started in when I was 4 in violin,
Cool.
and I had played classical, but then gone into a couple other genres, playing a little bit of fiddle and things like that here and there. But mostly spent a lot of time in orchestras and private lessons and quartets.
Yeah.
And then that year was the year that things changed drastically for me, because I saw that she had this insane instrument, and I didn't know that violins did that. I knew about like Yamahas, like the electric hollow body, Yamahas, and but I wasn't, super drawn to those. And then I saw those, and went to the class, met the guy who makes them, and he was a big personality too, and I was intimidated by that. I improvised for the first time in my entire life, very, very poorly that summer.
Nice, as we all do.
Yeah.
For the first time,
Yeah. Because, I'm used to playing lead parts and having them all written out for me, and playing in orchestras and sheet music, and, didn't really know chord charts and that whole thing at the time. And but I just wanted to sit in the class. I just wanted to see what was going on. And he goes, nope. And he just hands me an instrument. He goes, you can play that. And I was like, okay. Now it had like maybe 4 or 5 strings, and he's
just
like,
yeah, good luck.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
my gosh.
it translates fairly well, but there is a learning curve for that too, because of the way the instrument is set up. And, but he gave me one that was probably 4 or 5 strings, so it wasn't crazy. And I had no idea really what to do with it. Knowing him now, I'm like, yeah, there's no way he was going to let me just sit there. He was like, yeah, jump on in. The water's great.
He's that kind of guy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Mark Wood is his name. Creator and founder of Wood Violins. And
I was going to say, what a perfect name.
Right? I
for
know.
that kind of gig.
Yeah. Almost like it was meant to be.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he just stuck one of those in my hand, and he's like, here you go. And made me, so, they went down the line, made me solo. I was the last one. It sounded absolutely horrid. But also at that summer camp that year, I discovered Led Zeppelin for the first time, because he had us play Stairway to Heaven. Mm-hmm. And I had gone my entire life up to that point, surprisingly, never hearing Led Zeppelin ever. So my friend brought her iPod on the way to camp the next day, and she was like, yeah, you got to listen to this. And I listened to Communication Breakdown, Stairway to Heaven, and Good Times, Bad Times, I think were the first 3. And I was hooked after that. So
cool.
Ever since then, I got the itch to do heavier and heavier music.
Yeah.
And I think that's how I really made that transition. There was just something about that music that spoke to me more than any other music that I'd heard before.
Yeah.
It was grungy, it was dirty, it was sexy, it was all the things that I just had never been really exposed to in my world up until that point.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and then was just diving headfirst into all the 70s style music, and would primarily only listen to the classics.
Okay.
And then, learning more and more about Led Zeppelin, and Robert Plant being my favorite vocalist and artist at the time, I just knew that that's what I wanted to do. And over time, my influences and the heavier influences and some of the new modern stuff that's come out, and like Hailstorm is a big influence for me as well. So those, started to come to light, and I started getting more into like the heavier, grungier, some like kind of metal adjacent world.
Yeah.
And then my bandmates were metalheads, half of them at least.
Yeah.
And so that kind of shaped our sound a little bit more. I got exposed to heavier music, and I just loved it. Every bit of it. I just wanted to soak that up, and it did something to me internally where I was just like, there's nothing better to me than this feeling.
I love how you just started from Nashville as this like growing up in Americana, like the Americana city, and then you're just spiraling into heavier and heavier music throughout your life. That's so fun. Who's your favorite? I'm curious. What's your favorite like 80s or classic rock group then?
It'd definitely be Led Zeppelin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
After all, even they were the start and they're the end for you.
Yeah. I mean, I'm such a mega fan. I have like some of their lyrics tattooed on my arm.
Cool.
I've seen Robert Plant in concert twice, one with Alison Krauss, so going back to the Americana thing. So he did that Raising Sands album. And I saw both him and Heart in the same year when I turned 15.
Oh, cool.
As part of like my birthday presents, which was a wonderful year for me.
Yeah.
And then I saw him at Bonnaroo with Patty Griffin and the Band of Joy, which is still very much in that Americana stream. So yeah, I would say that they're still top tier for me. I have a soft spot for Heart as well, just because, you know, I think they walk that line so well, especially in the 70s, of having this really heavier, like grungy stuff and having these big powerhouse vocals. It's what I loved about Ann Wilson, is she was a force.
Yeah.
And then, you know, her sister Nancy was so good at, I mean, is still so good at you know, technical playing on the guitar. And I would look up to both of them for different reasons. Nancy for the instrumentation. I wanted to do something similar on the violin, and for her vocal ability. And they're just women in music, you know, fucking crushing it.
Yeah.
And so they were really cool. But as much as, I guess they were really cool to me at the time, and what they did well in rock, they also did well on the softer side of their music too. And I really liked that balance that they had.
That's really cool. But you're leaning more towards the heavy stuff. So heavy that now we're getting into Hailstorm. Where did that come from?
I'm trying to think of where that actually came from, because I remember listening to Hailstorm when I think their first album was coming out, and I heard them on the radio. Okay. But I didn't take a super deep dive into more of their stuff, because I heard them on the radio and I was like, yeah, you know, I dig this, but I didn't, you know, jump into their discography at the time. And then Kyle, my guitarist, he has a lot of their music in his playlists and everything. Oh, sure. And the more I started hearing of them, I was like, oh yeah. Like, this is my band. I was like, yeah. And so it just kind of sparked that fire in me again. And, you know, another really wonderful female fronted band. And I absolutely love what she's doing in the rock space. I love who she presents to be as a person, and who I you know, think that she is as a person. Very authentic and very open and encouraging of other young artists, especially young girls and women, to like own that space and take up space. And I think that really came through in her music. And at the time, that's what I really needed, was this unapologetic way of living that I wasn't fully embracing. And I resonated with that, and I've just loved rock music my whole life, and it just stuck with me differently than any other band had.
That's cool. We need to get you on a tour with those guys. I feel like you'd be the perfect match.
I would love that.
Come on, Hailstorm. We're tagging you right now. We're tagging you. Let's get this tour going.
Hell yeah. That's my dream come true, honestly. Yeah. Like, that would be fantastic.
Well, and worlds collide a little bit with Hailstorm, because we were talking before this about how they did an Americana cover you were telling me about, which I had no idea, right?
Yeah.
What's that one again? What did they do?
Yeah. So, well, they jumped into the country space, and they did
country, maybe not Americana, but
but they've done a bunch of different covers of different things, even pop songs like Bad Romance by Lady Gaga. They have these albums called Reimagined. And so they'll cover a bunch of, you know, popular songs that I don't know if they pick them or their followers pick them, but they have these little collections of songs that they cover. This one in particular was from the, I'm blanking on the album name, but the Brooks and Dunn kind of reimagined albums as well, and where they're re-recording a lot of their old top hits. Cool. And one of those was Boot Scootin' Boogie. And so when I heard that, because I've been playing more in the country and fiddle space outside of this band, I was just like, oh hell yeah. And as soon as I turned it on and it kicked off, I was like, this is it. This is really the best of both of those worlds. That's hilarious. Yeah.
I feel like you guys need to do something like that. You should blend your worlds, get some, because that's not just like blending. That's like, I mean, that's two extremes. Boot Scootin' Boogie. Yeah. I mean, that's like far on the deep end. So that's so cool. Well, let's listen to that. Let's check out that song. This is Hailstorm's version of Boot Scootin' Boogie. That would be fun to hear you guys do something similar. Talk to me about what the band is up to. What's next on the horizon? What do you guys have planned? It's 2025. We're not that deep into the year yet. What do you guys got going on?
We've been writing a lot of new music, and we've been in the studio quite a bit, tracking that new music.
Cool.
We have one song that I guess I don't know if I should talk about it in terms of it's coming up or it's already out.
Yeah.
Probably that it's already out.
Whatever. If it might be out by the time this comes out, we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've got one new song that we've been working on called In Cold Blood.
Nice.
That we're putting out late spring, early summer. And that one takes an even further step, I think, into being a little heavier. And we just keep toying around with that. We just keep taking more and more steps into that space and seeing, how far can we go without actually being metal?
How heavy can we get?
Yeah. So we did take a break for a little bit. I took about a year off from promoting the band and everything. It just...
Oh, a whole year?
Yeah.
What was going on in that year?
I had a lot that was going on in my personal life, and I was just kind of over the grind of it all at the time.
Yeah.
I was burnt out, and I'm trying to think back on kind of everything that was going on that year. It seems like a blur, but I decided I wanted to step back from that, and I felt like I was spinning my wheels in it a little bit, and just reassess some priorities, I guess.
Was there ever a moment where you thought, I don't know if I'm going to do this anymore?
Yeah, I remember calling my friend Colton from the Blasting Room.
Yeah.
He produces our music, and he's also a very, very dear friend of mine.
Yeah.
And I remember calling him, and I was like, I'm done. I'm never going to play music again. And thankfully, he convinced me otherwise.
Yeah.
And he was like, it's okay to take a break. You can step away from it. And I think that's a really important thing for artists to remember, is that, especially when you've been doing it for so long, you feel like you're constantly pushing a product. You don't get downtime. You don't get time off.
Yeah.
You might have a day job. You might have school. You might have spring break. You might have a break from work. You get to go on vacation. But really, if you have a passion outside of that and it's not your primary thing, you never stop working on it because you love it so much. And I think I got to the point where I kind of lost a lot of the enjoyment of it because I put a lot of pressures on myself.
Yeah.
And I was trying to do too many things at once.
Yep.
And so I told him, I was like, I'm never going to do it again. Like any kind of music. I don't want to do it. I don't want to promote it. I don't want to push it. I don't want to book. I don't want to, beg people to listen to this thing, that I've created.
Yep.
And he was like, well, take a break.
He's like, hold on, just take a freaking break here.
Yeah. And to be fair, it wasn't just all happening at once. There was a lot of stressors that kind of led up to this thing. And I was toying with this idea of is this even worth it? And I think all artists kind of go through that.
Oh, I do it every day.
Yeah.
It's not even just kind of, it's like, no, seriously, every single day I think, do I really still want this? Is this still really who I am? Is it worth it? Because I don't want to be the 40-something-year-old playing bar gigs and hoping for a dream to come true, and who let his life go by. I don't want that to be me. Not that 40 is letting your whole life. Sorry to the 40-year-olds out there, but you know what I'm saying? I want to, at some point, I think about moving on with life, and music will always be a part of my life, but I think about that every day of where's the line, and, but similar to you, something I was going to say, similar to you, having started, I did Suzuki from 4 years old too. It's been a part of my life, my whole life, and it'll always be a part of my whole life. Yeah. Like for the rest of my days, it'll always be a part of me. And same to you. You could leave it if you want, but it'll always be a part of you. So,
yeah. And I think I'd have major regrets if I did just walk away from it in that way. Because I was letting a bunch of other factors cloud my judgment, So I don't think I had true clarity about what I wanted at that time. I was frustrated and I just wanted to throw my hands up and be like, that's it, I'm done. And I think what it was is that, and you're right, as artists, we go through this so much, this struggle of and I guess this is how I tend to talk about it is like you're the worst musician in the entire world one day, and then the next day you have a God complex. Like you're the best thing and God's gift to man, you know, like in terms of an artist. And finding that delicate balance there, I think, is crucial for artists. And it's been crucial for me. And I guess what was happening is I just had too many days that were, or too many days that turn into weeks that turn into months.
Sure.
That was me thinking, I'm never going to make this happen. And I'm not a good musician. And I'm not, I can't make this thing into something that people really want to, latch onto. There you go. Yeah, exactly. So at that point, I was just kind of over it. And then there was like some circumstantial, like personal life stuff that I was like, you know what, maybe this just isn't a priority right now. Yeah. And so that's part of me being a little dramatic too, right? Flair for the dramatic.
That's all right.
I was like,
so what did you do during your downtime then, during your year? Did you do any music at all, or you're just chilling and working a normal job and you're just living life?
I started playing country music.
Oh, okay.
That's when that started.
Wow.
Yeah, because there's somebody that reached out to me and found me randomly on Facebook and was like, yeah, I noticed you play like violin. Do you want to like play fiddle for us? And I was like, oh, well, I don't know about that, the country thing. But it was, once I learned the repertoire, it was consistent work, consistent pay. I didn't have, it was a built-in crowd because we played at bars a lot. Yeah. And I didn't feel like I had to hustle just to like hustle quite as much to go up on stage and have a good time and just play for people. Yeah. And I found some fun and enjoyment in those songs and the way that I like approached them. Yeah. And then started to hate country music like less and less. There's always been a couple songs, over the years that I'm like, yeah, I don't really like country, but that one song's okay, So I think it was always there. And that one song was a gateway drug to, I guess, now what I tend to do more of now. But yeah, that's what I did a lot of my downtime. Cool. Country stuff. Yeah.
How cool that it could be that for you too. That country music could be that carefree attachment to music that you really not just wanted, but it sounds like you needed that. Yeah. And could really reel you back to, it's like I said, music's a part of you, right? And whatever the genre, whatever style, like it could just still be a part of you. And so that's super cool. Do you feel yourself now bringing that country flair to your music at all? I know you said, no, we're going heavier and heavier. So maybe you're like, no, this is my dual side where I'm not bringing any of it in. Do you find yourself being influenced by any of those like lines or licks that you're playing or not even that?
I think I always am and always have been. And people have told me that in my playing, there's quite a bit of Celtic influence.
Oh, okay.
Especially in the violin lines, that I play. So I think it's always going to be there because it's just welded in, sure. from my upbringing. But I don't see Wicked Vixen going that direction. I would see us doing more of like a country music reimagined as a heavy song, right?
Well,
like
not even that, but just like, do you find yourself the lines like they get into your head and then you're like all of a sudden making a metal song, or not even metal, but you get what I'm saying, a heavier song with like some of those more country kind of lines?
Sometimes.
Maybe I'm stretching it. Maybe I'm going to really trying here.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say that I've been genre blending with that too terribly much, but having the electric violin, sometimes it is fun to, wail on like some Chattahoochee, right? Yeah. Or some Dwight Yoakam, Okay. And we actually, in one of the country bands I was playing with, we play Devil Went Down to Georgia, of course. It's a crowd favorite. If you play the violin, they're going to ask for it. They're going to want it. Yeah. They go nuts for it. And so sometimes I'll pull that out for like Wicked Vixen sound check or something. Cause
there you go.
You just kick on the distortion and stuff. And we've talked about maybe doing that, as Wicked Vixen as a cover at a show or something. Nice. But, not too much of that blending, but I do notice that it influences other areas of my playing. So the country that I got into at the time, influenced some of my songwriting. And I used to like kind of have a knack for writing country music when I first started writing songwriting in general when I was about 13. Yeah. But I because I didn't like country music, I was always just like, no, not that, or no, that's stupid. And I would put ideas aside, and I would turn ideas away that would come to me.
Yep.
And, but I find that I'm able to tap into that genre pretty easily. And I do really enjoy writing country songs and country adjacent songs, or like indie songs, folk and Americana stuff. So personally, if I were to do anything solo, with that music, it more bleeds into that area rather than the Wicked Vixen stuff so much.
Oh, that's cool. Okay. All right. Yeah. Which maybe we'll see that. Maybe we'll see, if you had a solo project, maybe it wouldn't be called Zee. We've already been down this path.
Right.
Okay. But something else.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the song Outside. I want to listen to it just because it's in our repertoire for the day that I want to listen to it. I want to show the listeners Outside. Talk to me about that song and the release strategy maybe behind it, and just what would you like to talk about with that one?
Yeah, so the release strategy was basically no strategy.
Yeah, is that how it goes with most of them? Because I'll be honest, that's how most of mine go.
I think the release strategies are well intentioned.
Yeah,
right?
There we go. Yeah, they're more like release guidelines.
Yeah, exactly.
Release thoughts.
Yeah. It's more of just like an outline, just a concept,
Release strategies, more like release vibes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We all feeling pretty good about this? Hell yeah. So we actually released a lot of that music around the time that we took a break. So it's just bad because we were planning on releasing it anyways. And I was just like, I do not have it in me. I do not have it in me to do this right now.
Yeah.
And got to take a step back. And I think it's just so important for artists to do. Because I think if we don't give ourselves time or we don't allow ourselves to take a break, oftentimes you will burn yourself out. You'll run yourself into a wall, and then you will hate that thing. Like you'll grow disdain for it. So I wanted to make sure that didn't happen. And so unfortunately, even though we had a release plan, it didn't go according to plan. And so I just kind of did the bare minimum on that release.
Did that release kind of cue your sabbatical, or was it the sabbatical that kind of let the song have the lack of release?
It was the sabbatical that let the song have the lack of release.
Okay.
Because I think Playing with Fire, which was the first single that we put out on the 4 singles and then the EP that we released.
Yeah.
That one had more of a plan surrounding it.
Yeah.
The other ones, not so much. And by the time we got to Outside, I was bummed about that, honestly, because I really liked that song and I wanted it to have more of a spotlight. I wanted to ramp up to it, and instead of ramping up, it felt like it just fell flat.
Sure.
But circumstantially, I couldn't do anything about it at the time. And I was like, well, we still did this. We went to the studio, we wrote the songs, we recorded it, we did the whole thing. It's all packaged up. I have even the artwork for everything.
Yeah.
So I was like, it just needs to be out there. And that was something that I think I realized the most out of taking that break, is that it doesn't really matter to me so much anymore if what I put out is successful in terms of how it's viewed from the public eye.
Yeah.
Because the most important thing to me is that the art lives and breathes in the real world. Because if you have an idea, I think you are responsible to that idea to bring it to life. And I wasn't being, I guess, a good steward of those ideas that had come to me, because there was a lot that I had withheld from the world. Yeah. And I felt like I owed it to not only that music that we had recorded and planned and all this stuff, but also to a lot of the other things that I was interested in, like photography and poetry and other types of writing, like country songs and folk, to let them live and breathe. So I decided that at that point, like, as much as those releases would probably flop in comparison to the other ones that we had, I wanted them to be out in the world because it was a product I was still proud of.
Totally. Yeah. Well, I mean, who said it? That I think it was AJ in our last podcast, and he said that the worst release strategy is to not release your music. Just put it out. Put it out. So I'm glad that it's out there, no matter what the cost. And let's give it a platform here today, though. Let's listen to it. This is Outside. So you mentioned earlier that you have a new song coming out. What about beyond that? Is this a part of a bigger release? Are you doing a record? Are you doing an EP? Or are you just going to trickle some things out? What's the plan? What's the future hold?
Right now, I think we're just trickling a couple things out.
Yeah?
We're always writing.
You're just teasing?
Just teasing, you know.
Yeah.
I can't show my whole hand, you know. I've gotta keep a couple things close to the chest here, and but yeah, I mean, we're always writing, and I have a lot of ideas of what I want us to do. Would love to have an album out, you know, at some point soon. But right now it's just this one single, this one off.
Cool.
And it's not exactly like a complete turn for Wicked Vixen, but it is different from the other songs, primarily because it's a co-write. And so I started writing with our producer, and
Colton.
with Colton.
Oh, very cool. Okay, nice.
And so that process has shaped our music in, I think, really beneficial ways.
Yeah.
And that process has been very eye-opening for me in terms of how songwriting processes can go in the studio and collaborating with somebody in real time, because it's always just kind of been me and my silo, and then I bring that structure and the bones of it to the guys, and then we all flesh it out together. And this approach is very different, and I think it's done some pretty cool stuff with the music, primarily because we can get pretty experimental when you're in a studio that you have a lot of toys at your disposal.
Well, that's so cool. And so just so the listeners know, Colton is the guitar player member of the band Hated, and he also is a producer at the Blasting Room. Is that's the studio you're referring to? Is that the studio? Are you guys writing while you're in the studio, or are you writing outside of the studio and then you come and play?
So I'm going into the studio, and Colton and I are writing that together, and then taking those demos to the guys. So it's still kind of the same process as before, but he just knows our music intimately. He's been with us since the release of the 10-song album that we put out before the rebrand.
Oh, a long time then.
Yeah, a real long time, and we're good friends, and he knows what I want out of the band, and he also has a really great ear for a good song.
Cool.
And I think it's going to drive the music in a really cool and unique way. So yeah, we collaborate together on those songs, and then take the demos to the guys, and then they still put their finishing touches on it and kind of polish it up, and then we go into the studio and record at a different date.
Yeah. How awesome though. What a great place to write some music. Honestly, just good vibes in that studio. I'll say that.
I love that studio.
And getting to have just like pro things at your disposal, because I'm sure there's moments in your writing process where you're recording an idea and it probably ends up being a part of the final product. Like right then and there.
Yeah. And that actually happened in this track.
Did it?
Yeah. There's this tiny little shitty piano that they had in the studio.
Okay.
And
is this the toy piano?
Yeah. The one that's like,
it's like a little box. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a little box. And he put it on the floor, almost on the floor originally. He had something like just right underneath it. And I was like sitting on the floor almost, just tinkering around with this thing.
Yeah.
And just picking out lines and stuff, and he put a microphone up to it, and that's actually the first line that you hear in that song is the original recording from that first session that we did. And that's the first time that we had ever songwritten together, but I told him the concept that I had for this, and he was like, I got an idea. He pulls that out, and I was like, this is perfect.
That's so cool. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm so excited to hear this then. Also, just fun little tidbit. That same piano is on my song, I Don't Belong Here. I just got to throw it out there.
That's awesome.
Just tell the listeners. So.
Hell yeah.
So we both have a song with this toy piano on it now, but what a cool story. And that's the kind of fun stuff that happens at the Blasting Room, I feel like, is they have the ability to just whip these fun things out. So I'm stoked to hear it, though. Introduce the song for us. What's it called?
It's called In Cold Blood.
So you're here in Nashville right now. You're moving back to Colorado.
Yep.
What does that mean for the band?
I think that means we're going to be playing more shows.
Nice.
in the not so distant future.
Now we can plan some things, huh?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. I really liked going back and forth and getting my feet wet here in Nashville again. And the hope is to eventually bring the guys out to Nashville. I think.
Great.
I think Nashville would be really good for us. And there's so many amazing, local rock bands here that we definitely jive really well with.
Yeah.
But yeah, being back in Colorado is really exciting. We're going to be playing more in the Denver area because we had been focused more up in the Fort Collins area, but Denver will be our focus. The Springs, some surrounding states.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're out in the Colorado area, check us out and come to a show, and we'd love to see you.
Amazing. I'm sure the guys are stoked to have you back and have you there full time too. And yeah, the band's getting back together, you guys. Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I'm stoked for Wicked Vixen. I'm stoked to hear everything that comes ahead. And yeah, if you're in Colorado, go check out a show, you guys. Zee, thanks so much for being on the podcast today.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, that's all we got, folks. Thanks so much for listening to Pivot Points. You can listen to the Pivot Points Music Cast and more on the Fader app. My name's Seth Beamer, and I'll talk to you soon.